Have you ever noticed how some people feel the need to explain everything they do? They explain why they were late. They explain why they made a decision. They explain why they said no. They explain themselves again, and again, and again. But here's the uncomfortable truth. The more you explain yourself, the less powerful you appear. Confident people rarely feel the need to justify their actions. Not because they are arrogant, but because they understand something most people don't. Every unnecessary explanation slowly weakens your authority. The habit of over-explaining. There's a subtle habit many people have, and most of the time, they don't even realize they're doing it. It's the habit of over-explaining. You see it in everyday situations. Someone says they can't attend an event, but instead of simply saying I can't make it, they begin listing reasons. They explain their schedule. They explain their responsibilities. They explain how busy they are. They even apologize repeatedly. By the end of the conversation, what could have been a simple sentence turns into a long justification. But why does this happen? Why do so many people feel the need to explain themselves in such detail? The answer lies deep in human psychology. From a young age, many people are conditioned to believe that every decision must be justified. As children, when we made choices, adults often asked us to explain them. Why did you do that? Why didn't you do this? Give me a reason. Over time, this creates a subconscious pattern. You start believing that your actions must always be defended, that your choices must always be supported with explanations, and that if you don't explain yourself, people might misunderstand you, judge you, or disapprove of you. So you begin explaining everything. You explain your opinions. You explain your boundaries. You explain your decisions, even when nobody actually asked. But here's the problem. Every time you over-explain, you unintentionally signal something. You signal uncertainty. When someone speaks with confidence, their words are clear and direct. But when someone keeps adding explanations, extra details, and long justifications, it often sounds like they're trying to convince others, or even convince themselves. Imagine two people responding to the same question. The first person says, I won't be able to join tonight. That's it. Simple. Direct. Confident. The second person says, I can't join tonight because I have a lot of work, and I also didn't sleep well last night, and tomorrow I have an early meeting, so I really need to rest. The message is the same, but the energy behind it is completely different. The first response communicates certainty. The second response feels like it's seeking permission. Over-explaining can slowly train people to question you more. Because when you constantly justify yourself, you invite others to evaluate your reasons. And once people start evaluating your reasons, they may begin challenging them. They might respond with things like, are you sure you're that busy? You could still come for a little while. Maybe you're just overthinking it. Suddenly, a simple decision turns into a debate. And all of it started because of unnecessary explanations. Confident individuals understand something important. Not every decision needs a detailed explanation. Not every choice needs approval. And not every situation requires a long justification. In fact, the more secure a person becomes, the simpler their communication often becomes. They say what they mean. They stand by their words. And they move on. This doesn't mean they're rude or dismissive. It simply means they trust their own judgment. The habit of over-explaining usually comes from a place of fear. Fear of being misunderstood. Fear of disappointing others. Fear of appearing rude. But the truth is, people rarely respect someone who constantly tries to justify themselves. Instead, respect tends to follow those who speak calmly, clearly, and without unnecessary explanations. When you start removing the habit of over-explaining, something interesting happens. Your words begin to carry more weight. People start listening more carefully. And your decisions start sounding more confident. Because confidence isn't about speaking more. It's about needing to say less. Why people feel the need to explain themselves. Over-explaining usually comes from three psychological fears. The first is fear of judgment. Many people worry about what others think of them. So they explain themselves in hopes of avoiding criticism. But ironically, the more you try to defend yourself, the more attention you bring to the situation. The second reason is the need for approval. Humans naturally want to be liked. But when approval becomes a priority, people start explaining every action to make others comfortable. The problem is that people respect those who stand by their decisions, not those who constantly justify them. The third reason is lack of confidence. When you truly believe in your decisions, you don't feel the urge to defend them repeatedly. Confidence speaks quietly. Insecurity speaks loudly. How over-explaining reduces your authority. Authority isn't about how much you talk. It's about how much people trust, respect, and follow your decisions. Yet, many people unknowingly weaken their own authority by over-explaining. Let's break down why this happens. Authority is built on certainty. When you speak with confidence, people listen. When you act decisively, people follow. Authority is rooted in certainty, the kind that says, "I know what I'm doing, and my decision stands." But over-explaining is the opposite of certainty. Every extra word, every added justification, creates doubt in the listener's mind. Think about it. Two managers give instructions. The first says, "Submit the report by Friday." The second says, "Submit the report by Friday." I think that should be enough time. I know you're busy, but maybe Thursday is better? Let me know if it's too much work, or if you have other tasks, because I don't want to pressure you. Which manager commands more authority? It's clear, the first one. Why? Because simplicity and certainty communicate confidence. The second manager's over-explaining communicates uncertainty and invites negotiation. Over-explaining signals weakness. Here's the subtle part. When you constantly justify your actions, your brain is telling the world, "I need you to understand me. I need your approval. I am unsure." Even if you don't feel weak, over-explaining makes others perceive you as weak. Psychology shows that humans instinctively notice hesitation and doubt. When someone over-explains, it triggers a perception of vulnerability. And while vulnerability has its place, over-explaining in professional or social situations usually diminishes respect rather than builds it. Extra words create loopholes. Every extra word in an explanation is a loophole. When you provide too much detail, you give others a chance to question, argue, or challenge your decision. For example, "I chose this strategy because I analyzed the market trends, consulted the team, reviewed historical data, and considered alternative solutions." This sounds thorough, but it also opens the door to criticism. Did you really consult the team properly? What about trends you didn't consider? Are you sure your alternatives were valid? The more you explain, the more room you give for doubt and debate. Ironically, trying to justify yourself actually reduces your perceived competence. The power of saying less. Authority thrives in conciseness. Leaders who say less make decisions seem effortless. Confident individuals communicate with clarity, not volume. They trust that their reasoning doesn't need constant approval. When you start saying less, you communicate, "I am confident. I don't need to convince you." And people respond instinctively. They respect you more, they listen more carefully, and they follow your lead more willingly. Over-explaining slows down action. Another hidden cost of over-explaining, it wastes time. In work, leadership, or personal life, authority is also about efficiency. Every time you justify a decision unnecessarily, you slow down the process, create extra discussion, and weaken the natural momentum of action. Strong leaders know clarity and brevity are tools of authority. A simple instruction, a clear boundary, a short, confident explanation. That's enough to command respect. The mindset shift. To reduce over-explaining, ask yourself, am I explaining this because it adds value? Or am I explaining because I want approval? Am I explaining because I'm confident or because I feel insecure? The moment you realize that your decisions don't require constant justification, your authority increases naturally. Over-explaining doesn't make you helpful. It doesn't make people understand you better. It erodes your authority, creates doubt, and makes you appear uncertain. True authority comes from clarity, confidence, brevity. The next time you feel the urge to over-explain, pause. Ask yourself, do I need to say this, or am I just weakening my position? Because sometimes, the most powerful thing you can do is say less and stand firm. Silence is often the strongest response. In a world that constantly demands explanations, defenses, and justifications, silence can feel uncomfortable. But here's the truth, silence is often more powerful than any argument, any explanation, or any justification you could give. Silence commands respect. When someone over-explains, they are inviting judgment. They are giving others a chance to argue, question, or criticize. Silence, on the other hand, communicates something far more powerful. Confidence, self-control, authority. Think about it. When a leader stays calm in a tense meeting, saying only what is necessary, people lean in to listen. When someone responds with calm silence rather than getting defensive, it forces others to reassess their tone and words. Silence creates presence. It makes people take notice. It makes your decisions feel unshakable. Silence protects your energy. Over-explaining is exhausting. Every extra word, every repeated justification, drains your mental and emotional energy. It pulls you into debates, conflicts, and unnecessary explanations that don't serve you. Silence acts as a shield. It protects your energy by allowing you to choose when, how, and if you engage. It gives you control over the conversation instead of letting others dictate it. Silence creates space for others. When you stop over-explaining and stay silent, something interesting happens. People reflect on what you said. They begin to consider your perspective without being influenced by emotional justifications. They realize that your decisions stand firm and don't need defending. Silence forces others to engage with your words thoughtfully, rather than reacting to the chaos of constant explanations. Silence is a form of authority. There's a reason great leaders, negotiators, and influential people often speak sparingly. They say only what matters. They never rush to defend themselves. They let their presence and their choices speak for them. When you remain silent in moments where others expect an explanation, you communicate that you don't need validation. And that is powerful. Imagine this scenario. Someone questions your decision in a meeting. Instead of defending it at length, you simply nod, stay composed, and move on. This simple act shows confidence, communicates authority, often leaves others uncertain, even impressed, by your composure. Silence as a strategic tool. Silence is not about ignoring people or being passive. It's about choosing your words carefully, not reacting impulsively, maintaining control over the situation. Sometimes, your silence is the clearest message you can give. No words. No over-justification. Just calm, unwavering presence. This teaches people an important lesson: not every action requires an explanation, and not every opinion requires a debate. The psychology behind silence. Humans naturally want closure. When someone stays silent instead of over-explaining, it triggers curiosity and reflection. People try to interpret your silence. They reconsider the situation from your perspective. They often come to their own understanding, which is far more effective than any argument you could make. In short, silence can win respect and influence without saying a single unnecessary word. How to practice silence effectively? Pause before responding. Give yourself time to think instead of reacting. Respond only when necessary. Don't feel obligated to fill every quiet moment. Let your actions speak. Often, your results convey more than words ever could. Stay composed under pressure. Calmness in silence communicates strength. Remember, the person who speaks less but acts decisively is always remembered more than the one who talks endlessly. Silence is not weakness. It is strength. It is the quiet force that communicates confidence, authority, and self-respect. Over-explaining may weaken you. Arguing unnecessarily may drain you. But silence? Silence protects your energy, amplifies your authority, and makes every word you choose to speak carry weight. Sometimes, the most powerful response is not a response at all. When explanation is actually necessary. We've talked about how over-explaining can weaken your authority, erode confidence, and make you appear uncertain. But let's be clear, not all explanations are bad. There's a big difference between explaining for clarity and explaining for validation. Explaining for clarity. Sometimes, an explanation is not only helpful, it's necessary. For example, you're leading a team at work. You make a strategic decision. Your team needs to understand why this choice is being made. In situations like this, a brief explanation provides context. It shows reasoning without begging for approval. Instead of over-explaining every detail, a confident approach is. We're taking this approach because it aligns with our goals and past results. Here's what we're focusing on. Notice the difference. It's concise, factual, and value-driven. No unnecessary apologizing. No fear-based justifications. Explaining to teach or guide. Another case where explanation is necessary, teaching or guiding someone. If someone is learning a new skill or process, providing reasoning helps them understand. It empowers them to make better decisions themselves. For example, I'm asking you to double-check this report before submitting because small errors here can affect the entire project. This is not over-explaining, it's sharing insight. You're providing value and clarity, not asking for approval. Explaining in relationships. In personal relationships, explanations sometimes help maintain trust and understanding. A partner, friend, or family member may need context to avoid misunderstandings. But again, it's about clarity, not validation. For instance, I can't attend the dinner tonight. I have a deadline tomorrow, and I want to be fully present when we meet next time. Notice the tone, it's respectful and honest. It's not "I hope you forgive me" or "I feel bad if you're upset." It's a short, clear explanation with boundaries. Avoiding explanations for approval. The key distinction. Necessary explanation provides clarity, educates, or preserves important relationships. Unnecessary explanation seeks approval, tries to justify yourself, or attempts to convince others of your worth. Here's a simple litmus test. Ask yourself, am I explaining this so someone understands, or am I explaining so they approve? If it's the latter, it's likely weakening your authority and confidence. How to explain effectively. When you do need to explain, follow these principles. Be concise. Focus on facts, not emotions. Avoid over-justifying. Provide context only when it adds value. Stand firm after explaining. For example, weak explanation: "I didn't join because I had a lot going on, and I'm not sure if you'd understand, but I really wanted to come, and I feel bad if you're upset." Strong explanation: "I couldn't attend tonight due to prior commitments. Let's catch up tomorrow instead." The second version communicates the necessary information, maintains authority, and avoids giving away power. The mindset shift. Understanding when explanations are necessary is a mindset shift. Stop explaining to justify yourself. Start explaining to inform, clarify, and guide. Remember, the goal is effective communication, not constant validation. Once you master this, you'll notice something powerful. People start respecting your decisions more. Conversations become smoother. You feel more confident in your boundaries. And unnecessary conflict drops dramatically. Explanations are tools, not obligations. Use them wisely. To clarify. To educate. To maintain trust. Never use them to seek approval or defend your worth. When you understand this balance, you gain authority, respect, and freedom. Sometimes the most powerful approach is to explain just enough, and then stop. The mindset shift. The real shift happens when you stop asking, "How do I make everyone understand me?" and start asking, "Why do I feel the need to be understood by everyone?" You will never satisfy every opinion. Someone will always disagree with you. And that's okay. Confidence grows when you accept that your decisions don't need constant defense. The strongest people in the room aren't always the loudest. They're often the calmest. They speak clearly. They stand by their decisions. And they don't waste energy explaining themselves to people who were never meant to approve their path. Because true confidence isn't about convincing everyone. It's about knowing who you are and standing by your choices without apology. Sometimes the most powerful words you can say are very few. And sometimes the most powerful message is silence. If there's one thing you take away from this video, let it be this. Your worth does not depend on constant explanations. Your authority does not come from convincing everyone around you. And your confidence does not require endless justification. The strongest people in the room. The ones who inspire respect and influence. They speak less, act decisively, and stand firm in their choices. Remember, stop over-explaining. Speak clearly and with intention. And use silence as a tool of strength. Your decisions, your boundaries, and your life. They belong to you, not anyone else. If you apply this mindset, you'll notice something incredible. People will listen more carefully, respect you more deeply, and your own sense of confidence will grow naturally. So the next time you feel the urge to justify yourself, pause, think, and let silence and clarity do the work for you. Because real power isn't loud. It's calm. It's confident. And it's unshakable.